Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation F VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'll be featuring the team that won the very first regional championships in this brand new format. This team won the Portland Regional Championships, which took place in the beginning of January, and it was built and piloted by Alex Underhill, who is now a 3-time regional champion. This team is cool in particular because it features Entei. Entei is not a Pokemon that has had that much success in VGC throughout all of its existence, and to see it claim a major tournament all these generations after it was first introduced so long ago, I think is so cool to see. In particular, the combination of Water Ogerpon and Entei is a really strong duo and core right now in this format, and so I'm really excited to feature it. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down in the description below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's dive into things. First of all, just for some quick context, like I mentioned, this tournament was the very first official in-person tournament for the Regulation F format. It took place in Portland in the beginning of January, and it had over 500 players competing in the Masters division. You can check out all of the top teams from that tournament, as well as the tournament VODs linked down in the description below, but ultimately it was Alex Underhill with this team of Entei, Ogerpon, Fluttermane, Raging Bolt, Chien-Pao, and Dragonite who claimed the first place title. So a lot of strong returning Pokemon, including Dragonite Chien-Pao, which is a duel that's been used a lot throughout Scarlet and Violet VGC, but using some of the new tools in Raging Bolt, and of course Entei to claim the victory. Alex was already a 2-time regional champion coming into this tournament, and now is one of the few players in the world that has won 3 or more regional championships. So huge congratulations to Alex, and yeah, check out the results from this tournament because I think it's a really cool way to see how people approach the early format. Breaking things down, as always, Rental, Pace, and Team Creator are linked down in the description below. And question of the day, I want to know what you think has been the hardest Pokemon for you to personally fight against in the Regulation F format. There's also an incredible in-depth team report for this team on YouTube, so I'll link that video down in the description below, and I highly recommend you watch that if you want to gain information on how this team was created and how to really best pilot it. Now, of course, I was drawn to this team because 1, it won the very first tournament of this format, and 2, it has Entei. Entei did get a top 4 finish at the 2015 World Championships, but historically in VGC, it's just not really seen that much use and generally has been outclassed by other fire types. One of the reasons why it succeeded in this format in particular is because 1, Inner Focus is one of the best abilities in VGC right now, giving you immunity to both Fake Out as well as Intimidate, and 2, Terra is a thing now, so you can cover for Entei's weaknesses to common types like Water and Ground. For example, back in the day, Entei was pretty weak because Landorus Therian was so common and just had a really good matchup into it, right? And so I think it's really cool that after all these years, Entei has finally found a format where it really can thrive. When Regulation F first started, everyone talked about Incineroar, but not that many people talked about Entei. And Entei is just a really unique fire type, right? You've got Inner Focus, but you also have access to one of the best moves in the game in Sacred Fire. This move is just nuts because you have a 50% chance to burn the target. Honestly, I feel like I burn my targets more with Sacred Fire than Will-O-Wisp. Like, I really mean that. And so, not only do you have a move that does massive amounts of damage and you get same type attack bonus from it, but you can also burn opponents, and that's really valuable. Entei also gets access to some nice support moves, right? You have Snarl, which is really valuable in a format where Indeedee plus Armarouge, Indeedee plus Iron Crown exists. Snarl's really nice, often against those Trick Room setups as well that utilize special attackers like Torkoal, for example. And then you've got Extreme Speed and Stomping Tantrum. Stomping Tantrum just gives you really good coverage into so many Pokemon. There are a lot of Pokemon that are weak to ground type, of course, like opposing Enteis and opposing Incineroars. And Extreme Speed is really nice to just chip things away and finish things off. Now, some players will use Choice Band on Entei, but Assault Vest is just really nice and allows you to tank so many attacks in the format. Entei matches up really well, of course, against opposing special attackers. Fluttermane, of course, is one of the best Pokemon in the format, and Entei has a really nice matchup into it because you can tank those Fairy-type attacks and retaliate back with something like Sacred Fire, for example. So, this Entei is fairly speedy, as you'll notice, which is valuable against, for example, opposing Admin Urshifus. You also deal a lot of damage with 115 base attack, and so it's got good stat distribution across the board, right? And with Grass Terra, you are able to, of course, resist water-type attacks, which is going to be really important given the prevalence of Pokemon like Urshifu, as well as Water Ogerpon. Entei plus Water Ogerpon in particular is, I think, one of the best duos right now in the format. You'll notice that this Water Ogerpon has exactly one more speed point than Entei, so this way you know that when you are moving with these Pokemon, Ogerpon will always move first, which is important. But this Ogerpon is super, super bulky, as you'll notice. 244 HP, 92 defense, 12 special defense. This is really nice because I think most people don't expect this amount of bulk from Ogerpon, and it's really crucial because this Ogerpon is really valuable as a support user with Follow Me. Often I'll have games where I go with Ogerpon and Entei, and I actually just Water Tera Follow Me immediately to have like a super bulky Follow Me user, while Entei is able to just distribute a lot of damage immediately. However, this Ogerpon isn't only designed to be supportive, you still deal so much damage with Ivy Cudgel and Horn Leech, and so it's a Pokemon that not only is support, but also doubles down as incredible offense. And so Entei plus Ogerpon here is just a really strong combination. Of course, we've got Raging Bolt, which is one of the brand new Pokemon in the Regulation F format. I think Bolt is interesting. This is the Pokemon that I've personally brought out the least while using this team, but it fits in for a lot of specific matchups. I mean, first of all, having safety goggles just means that you have a really good time against opposing Amoonguses, and so that in itself makes this Pokemon fairly valuable. What's interesting is that this Raging Bolt is not the Combine setup set, it's just a set designed to hit really hard with Thunderbolt, Thunderclap, Draco Meteor, and Protect. One of the reasons I really like Raging Bolt on this team is because this team often forces out defensive Terras to survive attacks like Sacred Fire or like Ice Spinner, right? But often, people will Terra into something like Water, which then the Raging Bolt can take advantage of. So Bolt exists on this team to kind of cover for a lot of the weaknesses or a lot of the defensive Terras that people will go for to otherwise survive attacks on other Pokemon from this team. And Thunderbolt is just consistent damage, right? Thunderclap is a really cool move that Raging Bolt gets access to, but it's not the easiest move because your opponents, of course, can play around it by switching out or by going for non-attacking moves. And then Draco Meteor just does massive amounts of damage as well. To round out the team, you've got Dragonite and Chien-Pao. This is a duo as old as time in Scarlet and Violet VGC. It has been so powerful, and it continues to be really dominant in this format. Very straightforward. Of course, you mainly want to use it to go for normal Terra, Choice Band Extreme Speed. With that defense draw from Chien-Pao, you can get a lot of one-hit knockouts immediately, which is so powerful, and you've got good coverage with Outrage, Aerial Ace, and Stomping Tantrum. Chien-Pao here is as standard as it gets. It's important to note why Ice Spinner is really valuable over Ice School Crash. I think like you don't really need the extra damage, and Ice Spinner is so good when we're playing a format with Indeedee, with Rillaboom, right? Getting rid of Psychic Terrain so that expanding Force Spam isn't as effective. Getting rid of Rillaboom's terrain while dealing super effective damage into it, and also not having to deal with potentially missing for Chien-Pao is really nice. But yeah, this Chien-Pao set is as standard as it gets, basically. But you know, when people use Chien-Pao, there are a lot of different decisions you can make. Do you want to run Jolly or Adamant? Do you want to run Ice School Crash and Ice Spinner? Do you want to run Crunch? Do you want to run Stellar Terra? A lot of things to consider, but this is kind of the go-to standard Chien-Pao set. Flutter Mane is the last Pokemon, and this is a special attack booster energy set, so nothing too crazy about it, but the main thing I want to call out is the speed investment. As you'll notice, it's modest max speed. This is a really big deal because there are very few people that run timid max speed on Flutter Mane, and most people that run Flutter Mane in the format will run a fair amount of bulk and not invest this much in speed, right? So the idea behind running modest and 252 speed EVs is that you will generally outpace most of the opposing Flutter Manes that you run into. Now that this team has won a big tournament, though, people might start speed creeping it and now indeed run timid and then try to go up to basically max speed, right? But the point is, I think this was a really smart meta call given the meta at the moment, because there were just very few people running Flutter Manes with this amount of speed investment, and having a Flutter Mane just outspeed an opposing Flutter Mane is such a big deal, right? Especially with booster energy, you can just threaten opposing Flutter Manes with a one-hit knockout with Shadow Ball, so I think that's really smart. In terms of ways with playing with the team, I highly recommend you just check out the VODs from the regional championships, but I think go-to leads that I've really enjoyed with this team include the Ogerpon plus the Entei, Dragonite plus the Chien-Pao, and Flutter Mane plus Ogerpon. I think all of these exert a lot of offensive pressure immediately and have really good synergies, right? I think Ogerpon Entei in particular is a cool combo because a lot of people will try to go for defensive Terras to survive, for example, an attack from Entei. But if you go for a water defensive Terra, suddenly the Ogerpon can hit you for super effective damage and go for Horn Leech, for example, right? Or maybe people will go for a Fire Terra or a Grass Terra to survive like water type attacks from Ogerpon. But then if you go for a Grass Terra, for example, right, Ogerpon can just take advantage of that. And so, yeah, I think that is really valuable. And I think a lot of this team is kind of often forcing bad Terras out from your opponents so that other Pokemon can just threaten with knockouts. The main thing to know when using Entei, I would say, is also, like, it's not going to pick up that many one-hit knockouts. You're not max attack here. Base 150 attack is strong, but it's not, like, the strongest. But it can two-hit knock out so many different things, and you can just have so much disruption with this Pokemon, and it's felt really good while using it, so I'm excited to feature it. So in terms of weaknesses, I think the first thing to call out is that Rock is a really good offensive type against this team. Chien-Pao, Entei, Dragonite are all weak against it, and you don't have a single resistance against it. I actually played one game while practicing with this team, and I went up against a Choice Band Rampardos under Trick Room, and it just rock slided my entire team, and I had no counterplay to it whatsoever. And so Rock-type Pokemon and strong Rock-type attacks can be really scary. That's one thing to think about. I also personally struggled a little bit against Priority Denial and Trick Room in particular. I think, for example, I played against Farigiraf a bunch, and Farigiraf with Citrus Berry in particular is pretty annoying because I couldn't double up onto it easily for a knockout, where I'd get like one big attack, but it'd heal back up, and then the other Pokemon would not like secure the knockout onto it. And so I think a fair amount of games where my opponents have set up Trick Room and then just kind of sweep me afterwards have been scary. You do have answers against Trick Room, right? If like they don't have Farigiraf, you have a lot of priority, which is really nice between the Dragonite, the Chien-Pao, the Entei, as well as the Raging Bull. And then Snarl on Entei in particular is really valuable against Trick Room setups, especially things like Hatterene Entity or Armarouge Entity, for example. But I feel like my win rate against Trick Room while using this team has not been the strongest, and so that's one other thing to pay attention to. Another thing to note is that this team doesn't actually have speed control, right? You just rely on just the pure base stats and power of some of the strongest Pokemon in the game, but as a result, going up against opposing teams that are able to control the speed and then outpace you can be scary in particular. I've also lost games where I assume my Flutter Mane is just going to be faster than my opponent's Flutter Mane, and then they end up being like timid max speed and outpacing us, so that's something that can be pretty scary as well. I mentioned Farigiraf earlier, but just ways to block priority are valuable, so I think like Ghost Terras, for example, can be really scary to fight against because, of course, then Dragonite as well as Entei, like, do you really want to click those extreme speeds, for example? And then I think Entei is a really solid Pokemon, but there are a fair amount of Pokemon in the format that actually just don't really care for any of its moves and can wall it decently well, right? So like water type Pokemon in general don't care that much going up against Entei, especially like special water types. I've also fought against Pokemon that, while they may be physical, like just don't really take very much damage from any of the moves, right? Like Dragon type Pokemon, for example, or Dragon Terras. So you have to be careful because Sacred Fire is a really nice move, and if you're up against a physical attacker, you get a burn, that's amazing. But sometimes Entei can feel like dead weight, and I feel like in a lot of the games I've lost while using this team, I don't properly utilize Entei. It's kind of just out on the field sitting there, and then I'm kind of forced to make a switch, allowing my opponent to really capitalize off things. And so I think Entei can be amazing, but it's not like it just has a great offensive matchup and everything, so be careful about that in particular. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to note. Alright, we've got Entei, Whimsicott, Raging Bolt, Walking Wake, Rillaboom, and Flutter here. So they have Tailwind, to which I could try to burst down with extreme speeds. They could Ghost Terra though, which is the problem. But forcing a Terra out wouldn't be the end of the world, I think. I'm intrigued by Entei plus Dragonite as a lead here. And in the back, Chien-Pao. Ogre is decent because I could Terra in front of Wake. Flutter could take advantage of the sun if they set it up for us. But I'm afraid that we just get outsped. So I'm going to bring Ogre because it has redirection support. Yeah, I think the main interesting thing is that they lead Whimsicott. I could pressure with extreme speed from Entei and normal Terra, Dragonite extreme speed. But then the question is, does Whimsicott just Ghost Terra to get around that? Because that would be the easiest way to deny Tailwind. Maybe Entei Whimsicott. Probably going to Sacred Fire Dragonite. Double E-Speed here is honestly pretty tempting. But I could also just try to knock out Entei and target that slot instead, right? Like, do I really need to deny Tailwind here? I don't think it's a bad idea to, yeah, just Stomping Tantrum Entei, normal Terra, and E-Speed here. It would make me very happy if Whimsicott Terra'd. And there is a Terra here. Okay. Show me Ghost Terra Whimsicott. Hoping to bait that out, but nope, it's going to be Entei Terraing. They also go for normal Terra. Okay. So, it's going to be the battle of the extreme speeds here. We Terra Dragonite. Also confirms the speeds, which is good. But I'm curious if they're going to click extreme speed here. They do. Okay. Into our Dragonite. That looks like choice band damage to me, for sure. Okay, I think Stomping gets the knockout here, which would be really nice, because essentially their Terra doesn't get that much value. And then we get one more really powerful extreme speed off. Oh, wow, they hang on with like 1 HP. Wow, that's actually such a big survival for them. I'm going to Snarl here. They should be targeting Dragonite, and I do actually think conserving Dragonite might be worth it. But I guess giving it up and getting a free switch into Ogerpon isn't the end of the world here. So, I'll Snarl on E-Speed, but that's unfortunate that they survived with like 1 HP. Wow. Ooh, but they target Entei. Okay. So I think I get a double knockout with that. Nice. Because this should bring you down to 1 HP, I would guess. Oh, Whimsicott survives with a little bit more, so I'm curious if it's some bulk invested into it. But I think Whimsicott surviving isn't actually bad, because it means they don't get 2 free switch-ins. So, it's okay. Yep, Snarl knocks out Entei. Man, it is a shame that we came so close to the knockout and missed it on turn 1 with that double up. If Entei just had like 4 more attack EVs or 8 more attack EVs, maybe we get it. I can E-Speed to finish off Whimsicott now, so I don't mind bringing Champao because it's got Focus Sash, so it can handle whatever's coming out. And Flutter is totally fine. I can just Ice Spinner that slot now. Yep. It's also worth considering Sacred Fire into Flutter and Protect here, I think. Kind of down for that. I don't know. Maybe it was fine to just go for the safe E-Speed Ice Spinner play. But I think, like, this essentially wins if they end up not doubling up onto Entei. It could just be Moonblast Shadow Ball. Let's see. Nice. Huge. Okay, perfect. I don't know if this risk was worth taking, though, because they could have gone for Shadow Ball there onto Entei. But Sacred Fire now should just get the one-hit knockout thanks to the defense drop. And this is one thing that makes Entei so incredible. So, Entei's put in so much work just by getting that knockout. And now we can just Extreme Speed finish off the Whimsicott. Raging Bolt's their last one, but they already committed their Terra. So, we just Extreme Speed you, finish that off, and then just spin a Raging Bolt. Amazing. Cool. Bolt here is probably going to bring us down to Focus Sash. Not even, because they went for Thunderclap rather than like a Draco Meteor. So we get a super effective Ice Spinner off here. And that does not pick up the knockout, but that's okay, because Extreme Speed from Entei will finish things off. And it is Leftovers Bolt, which is fine. Fast-paced game here, but Tailwind Peter's out. Yeah, we can just Ice Spinner and Extreme Speed here. And E-Speed finishes it off. I think, like, Entei is nice because you don't have to commit to Extreme Speed with the Assault Vest set, right? It's not like a choice band Pokemon where you always have to click. So having the flexibility of going for different moves and then finishing Pokemon off with Extreme Speed, I think makes this Pokemon super, super valuable. So, yeah, I think what was key for us in this game was that ultimately Whimsicott was stuck out on the field and didn't do very much, and I think my opponent didn't really respect Entei's damage output. I think the key turn is really the turn that Entei just got the one-hit knockout onto the Flutter Mane, right? So I think in that scenario, it's kind of scary because, of course, my opponent could just go for Shadow Ball onto Flutter, with Flutter onto Entei. The main thing is I think a lot of Flutters aren't going to be spexed. So the thing is, do you really want to commit to locking a Shadow Ball? Because if I have Extreme Speed, you're Whimsicott, and you've clicked Shadow Ball, then you're just locked into that for the rest of the game. And then you have Spec Shadow Ball against Chien-Pao, which doesn't feel really great, right? So I took a risk that turn, and I figured if it worked, I would win the game. So it's a little bit scary because, yeah, they easily could have clicked Shadow Ball there, or like Moonblast, double Moonblast into Entei, for example. But that one prediction essentially just secures us the game immediately. And Entei was perfect to close out the game with Extreme Speed just knocking out Whimsicott so couldn't get any free damage onto the Chien-Pao, and then finishing off the Raging Bolt as well. We've got Illumise here. It's kind of funny to see Illumise still being used despite Whimsicott now existing. I actually made a video about Illumise winning a regional championship in Taiwan at the end of the previous regulation if you want to check it out. Mainly used because it has the combination of Fake Tears, Tailwind, and Encore, but Whimsicott now is in the format, so it can obviously do the same thing. Otherwise, we have 4 of the 6 same Mons. What do I want to lead with here? We're up against Tailwind again, just like the previous game. Entei is incredible into their whole team other than Ogerpon. So what's our best Ogerpon answer? Dragonite's not bad. Could bring Dragonite and Terra it. I don't mind Ogerpon and Entei here as well, I think. With Flutter and Chien-Pao. Ogre allows me to redirect with Follow Me. They could, of course, go with Ogre and Entei as well, which would be pretty interesting. Like, we do have a very similar core here. I think my fear of Dragonite is a bunch of different things. Ghost Terra on Illumise, you have Flutter and Gholdengo as well, so it's harder to get value out of Extreme Speed comfortably. And then Raging Bolt feels a little bit off here as well, because it doesn't like really pressure most Pokemon on my opponent's team for like a one-hit knockout. And I don't think we really get positive trades with it, generally. Flutter Illumise. Okay, pretty classic. With this, you can just go for Fake Tears into, like, Dazzling Gleam. Booster Energy. Probably Special Attack. Oh, it's actually Speed, huh? Speed feels pretty weak here, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think given that you're Speed, I feel like I can just Terra here, Ivy Cudgel, Flutter Mane, and Sacred Fire. Because I don't think Fake Tears plus Moonblast or Shadow Ball KO either Pokemon. Okay, they bring out Entei, that's fine. Yeah, like, we force Illumise off the field, which is not a bad start. I mean, what does Flutter really scare me with here, right? Like, I think Entei so far is really good into their entire trio of Pokemon. There's just not too much to threaten us with damage. Okay, Flutter just protects, that's fine. Would have been sick if I swapped my moves the other way and just got a one-hit knockout onto the Entei as it switched in, but this is still fine. I'll take some free damage with Sacred Fire here. They could have Ogerpon as their fort, so they could theoretically switch that in right now. So I think I'm going to Horn Leech into Flutter Mane here and Sacred Fire into it. I think that covers for anything they could switch into, right? Yeah, that should be a knockout onto the Flutter Mane slot, essentially. Alright, I'm down for that. This could be an icy win. It could be a switch. Ideally, they switch Flutter out into Ogerpon, and I knock Ogerpon out on a switch in. I think that would give me a huge lead, but they're going to stay in Terra. Okay. Could be Terra Entei defensively. They just went for Terra Fairy Flutter. Okay. Kind of surprised by that. Because Sacred Fire, Flutter, and Ivy Cudgel Entei would have worked out really well. That looks like... Okay, I was going to say, I thought it was Choice Band damage, but it's Life Orb. But with the special defense boost, I don't think this KOs. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Horn Leech almost just secures the knockout there. I can see what they were going for there, though. They're like, I don't need to switch out if I'm just going to knock you out and you can't get any water-type damage off. But because it's speed-boosting Flutter, I figured we'd be bulky enough to survive. This Ogerpon is incredibly bulky as well. It's not nearly as invested in speed, so it gives us an extra edge. Alright, great. Illumise comes back out. E-Speed shouldn't even finish this off. Sacred Fire should just wreck this. I think I'm happy to Ivy Cudgel Illumise. Nah, actually I'm fine just to go for Cudgel here. Sacred Fire here. I don't think we need to really make any predictions. I guess they could still switch an Ogerpon. But with no Terra available now, I'm not as scared. But it's going to be Helping Hand from Illumise. Okay, that's fine. I assume you're just E-speeding to finish me off? Yeah. That's fine, though, because I'll take that trade, right? You take more Life Orb damage, and Illumise now eats up a Sacred Fire as well. I could have gone for Spiky Shield there, by the way, but like then they have the ability to just Stomping Tantrum me, and we just get a one-hit knockout onto that, so that's fantastic. Beautiful. I think we bring out Flutter here first instead of Chien-Pao, just so Chien-Pao doesn't eat up in extreme speed, and I don't want to boost their damage output right now. Gholdengo's the last one. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I feel like Entei was so well positioned in this game. They had nothing to really threaten it with damage throughout the course of the battle. I think Entei should survive a Shadow Ball Stomping combo. We've got Booster Energy. I'm happy to just Shadow Ball their Entei then and Sacred Fire into Gholdengo. Especially with Chien-Pao in the back, like all I need is one extra attack on both of these Pokemon and Chien-Pao should clean up. Shadow Ball might just knock out their Entei, honestly. Okay, survives with just enough where we can get one extra attack off. We actually missed Sacred Fire, but I think Entei's really done his job, so I can't complain too much. It's going to be Power Gem coming out. And then Stomping. That's fine. This was a game where we were so far ahead it didn't matter, right? It would have been nice to hit the Sacred Fire just to potentially get a knockout, but Entei really proved its worth in this game, in my opinion. It did more than I needed to do. Right, it forced out a switch on turn 1. It was able to secure a one-hit knockout onto the Illumise, and it was never in too much danger. In the end, like, this duo that my opponent had was probably their best means of dealing with Entei, but it's a little bit too late, right? And Illumise just wasn't very scary, ultimately, so we can just Shadow Ball and Sucker Punch now. Should be Choice Specs Gholdengo, given that Power Gem did a lot into Entei, and you have Power Gem to begin with, otherwise not much of a reason to run that on Gholdengo unless you're choiced. So, yeah. I think the main thing in this game is that Speed Booster Flutter did not apply that much offensive pressure, and the key turn, in my opinion, is when they went for the Terra, they doubled up onto the Ogerpon, and Ogerpon survived. This Ogerpon EV spread is super, super clutch, so being able to tank those attacks, and then be able to get a knockout in return, and also for Entei to be so healthy throughout the course of the beginning to the mid-battle was really nice. I wish it could have gotten another knockout with Sacred Fire onto Gholdengo, but it's definitely performed super well so far. Alright. This is actually going to be a rematch of the finals from the Portland Regional Championships, which is pretty fun. So, the team that we're up against is the team that Chuppa Cross used to get second at the Regional Championships, and this team, of course, is the team that won. And so, it was actually a really, really close finals, but I'm wondering if my opponents, like, deviated from the original team. The same Pokemon, so I would be surprised, actually, if there were deviations. But I think a big question, essentially, what it boils down to is, like, do we think Dondozo comes out? And if so, in what order, like, does it come out? So, a lot of different combos that we can go with. Like, I think in Game 1 of the finals, we saw Flutter Chien-Pao lead with Dragonite in the back. Flutter Chien-Pao does exert a lot of pressure immediately, so I think that's worth considering. I think the other question is, do we want to bring Entei into this matchup? It's not really that great, to be honest. Yeah, I think the general approach was Chien-Pao, Flutter, Bolt, Dragonite. I think, like, yeah, Entei is interesting here. You could make an argument to bring it if you want to fish for burns onto Dondozo. It doesn't feel great to bring against Glimmora in particular. But Entei is, of course, pretty good into Chien-Pao as well, right? So it's like one of the things you could do is like lead Entei and Terra it immediately, which could be solid. Like Entei against this lead actually would have been decent, I think. But Raging Bolt is going to be important to utilize. So we get the booster. It's going to be special attack. Rocky Helmet Dozo is on the team as well, which is a little bit scary. Like, I think I personally want a Sacred Sword Chien-Pao here and Protect. They could just switch into Tatsu immediately, but I don't mind an early Tatsu swap in, I think. Okay, they are going to pivot. Alright. Yep, into Tatsu immediately. Okay. So yeah, basically, like, the value of bringing Entei is basically to Grass Terra and then fish for a Sacred Fire Burn. That's basically it. Now I'm mainly curious if they went for Wave Crash. The other question is, like, who do I want to commit my Terra to? I think Order Up onto Chien-Pao would have been a really nice play by them here. So let's see if they went for it, but good start for them. Okay, they opted for Earthquake. I think this next turn I can pivot Chien-Pao out into the Dragonite. Chien-Pao out into Dragonite here. I'm actually thinking about going for Fairy Terra Moonblast just to, like, really burst the Dondozo. Who else would I Terra? Could be Terra Dragonite. Yeah, I want to switch out here. Right. I think I'll switch out and just go for a regular Moonblast. I don't want to commit my Terra. It was a nice Earthquake, though. Double Protect, I think, would have been acceptable on turn 1 as well. But, like, there's no guarantee they're going to make that swap, right? Okay, they end up clicking Wave Crash. I get crit, but it's fine. Super fast Dozo here, though. Yeah, wait, so you're Jolly Max, right? Wow. Yeah, not getting Moonblast off before actually really stings. So bring out Raging Bolt. With Raging Bolt, like, I would guess let Dondozo Terras now. You could Dragon Terra. I want to Extreme Speed. Water Terra. Draco Meteor. Ah, they don't Terra. Okay. Yeah. Nicely played. I didn't remember if Flutter was outsped by Dozo in the finals. But that interaction is actually a pretty big deal. Okay, now they know I'm trying to Draco Meteor, so I wonder if it's worth it to just click Thunderclap, honestly. Yeah, just Extreme Speed Thunderclap. I think I will go for Thunderclap here. Actually, I might as well Thunderbolt, because I'm not going to faint with Bolt, right? Yeah, they don't Terra. Okay. They go for Order Up, yeah. This knocks me out. Oh man, I don't do a very good job of playing around Dozo. I think like Earthquake plus Wave Crash was just really good sequencing by my opponent. How much does Thunderbolt do here? Oh, that's huge actually. Okay. I mean, with that, I do get a double knockout here with Sucker Punch into... I just don't want to click Draco because then I'm at -2. Do I have to? I might have to, honestly. I mean, Bolt has a good matchup into... I can force it to be a 2v2, essentially. But then, like, my Chien-Pao is just one attack away from getting KO'd. But maybe I'm a speed tie away from winning against their Chien-Pao. Their Tatsu isn't actually that much of a threat, though. So maybe it's actually better to leave Tatsu out on the field so they don't get 2 free switch-ins. Okay. Yeah, I think the first 2 turns were just not well done on my end, and my opponent very thoroughly outplayed me. And I forgot about the fact that Dondozo would be faster than Flutter. Maybe it was worth it to just knock out Tatsu there. I'm not sure. Dragonite's their last one. I mean, with Dragonite, you just extreme speed, right? And you can Terra it. I think then my win con is a double protect. Or for some reason they choke and don't Terra Dragonite. I think I actually play towards that. Protect, Draco one-shot, then Sucker Punch KO Tatsu. But they should always Terra Dragonite here. But if for whatever reason they don't, that's an opportunity for us. Yeah, there's the Terra. Could hope for a crit on Draco as well, but otherwise I'm playing towards the double protect option I was talking about earlier. Yep, there's the Terra. Okay, we protect. Was this winnable given that they targeted Bolt? Because I could have Sucker Punched to KO Tatsu. No, I mean with higher prio on extreme speed, probably not. Did I miss Draco as well? Alright, then we really have no chance. But I think the game was probably over even if Draco connected there, unless I get a critical hit. Because, yeah, Draco shouldn't knock out Dragonite otherwise. So, it was close, but yeah, I think the key thing was just Dondozo outspeeding the Flutter Mane. Right? Like, Flutter Mane not getting a single attack off feels really bad there. And then, like, turn 1, I took a lot of extra damage with Chien-Pao as well. So, my opponent just did a really good job using Dondozo in the opening turns. Alright, we've got another Dondozo team here. Blood Moon, Farigiraf, Dondozo, Tatsu, Chien-Pao, and Ogerpon. Well, with the knowledge from the last game, like I feel like I should just be assuming max speed Dozo, so Flutter becomes less valuable. And Flutter's honestly not that great in this matchup. Chien-Pao Dozo is definitely one lead to respect, right? Thinking Entei, Chien-Pao, Ogre, Raging Bolt. Let's try this out. Taking some learnings from our previous game. I think it's just tricky because, like, not everyone's running Jolly Dozo, but with Dozo being back in the meta and Chuppa being the most prominent Dozo user, I think a lot of people will probably try to use a similar strat. It's going to be Trick Room for my opponent, okay. I mean, I can Sacred Fire and Ice Spinner here into Farigiraf. I'm just going to go for it. I don't know if it KOs. Like, if they have Citrus Berry, I'm worried that Ice Spinner activates Citrus, and then they heal back enough. It'd be my dream if they, like, Terra'd Farigiraf, because they are worried about Crunch from Chien-Pao, but this is Sucker Punch Chien-Pao. The idea, though, is if we knock out Farigiraf, I think Ogerpon actually has a really good time here. Wow, they have Protect on Farigiraf. Do they attack with Blood Moon? Okay, it's just a double Protect. I was like, that would be nuts if they read into the double and then attacked with Blood Moon. Like, an incredible, incredible read by them, if so. Okay. Now, they see I don't have Crunch. Still gonna make the same play. You know, the thing is, now I could actually double up on Ursaluna. Like, your Farigiraf... Normally, you protect and then set up Trick Room, but now I could just knock out the Trick Room user itself. Or sorry, not the Trick Room user, the Trick Room Sweeper. Kind of down for that. I'm wondering if I should Ice Spinner, because Ursaluna could be Ghost Terra here. I don't know if Ice Spinner Sacred Fire KOs is my fear. Alright, I'm gonna double up on Ursaluna. Here's Terra, though. What is it gonna be? Uh-oh. Is it Ghost? Okay, nice. This is a huge turn for us, because I just knock out whatever Terra'd, right? As long as I don't miss Sacred Fire. Nice. Oh, does this KO? I'm not sure it does. Okay. Phew. That was scary. Sacred Sword did less than I expected, and then Sacred Fire did more than I expected, essentially. Perfect. So they were trying to just go all in there, get the Hyper Voice off. I wonder if we just got a low roll with Sacred Sword and a high roll with Sacred Fire. They bring Dozo out. Okay, so Dozo's out under Trick Room, which is interesting. I think I Terra this. Terra Grass, Sacred Fire Dozo, and then Protect. And if we burn Dozo, then Dozo's just so ineffective in this endgame. But compared to the last on Dozo game, I think I'm already in a much better spot. Alright, Farigiraf protects. Cool. That works for me. I think this next turn it might be worth considering doubling up onto them, but yeah, they just click Earthquake, but with Grass Terra and no combination with Tatsu, this just does no damage. Dozo's just in an awkward spot right now, because it's like Trick Room is set up, so you don't want to really switch into Tatsu. Sacred Fire connects onto Dozo. Not bad damage. No burn, unfortunately, but that's fine. I think I'll just go for Sacred Fire again here. Switch into Ogerpon. Yeah, I think the reality is they just don't have that much damage out pressure, so I get a couple chances for a Sacred Fire burn. I would just love to get this burn before Trick Room ends, because I don't want Tatsu to... Dondozo Tatsu to just wreck me basically after Trick Room's over. And if we burn, then their damage output is just really lacking in this endgame. Okay, they go for Gleam, crits me, still not that much damage. And then Order Up, but you don't get a boost from this. Under Sacred Fire. And we get the burn. Beautiful. Your odds of getting a burn after using 2 Sacred Fires are pretty darn good, so happy to have finally secured it here. Perfect. Okay, with that, I think we should be very well positioned. What do I want to do here? Farigiraf isn't really a problem, and Tatsu should be their last one. They keep protecting with Farigiraf. Maybe they just Dazzling Gleam here. I'm happy to just... I could see them switching into Tatsugiri this turn, honestly. I'm down to Extreme Speed and Horn Leech into Dondozo. Dozo protecting here means that Farigiraf just gets a Dazzling Gleam. Yeah, I think they realize Tatsu's my last one. I can't really do much with you having Ogerpon here. So, pretty interesting to kind of learn from the previous Dondozo match and then completely pivot, bringing both Ogerpon and Entei. Like, I don't think you always should be going with Ogerpon and Entei, but yeah, I think like one of the key learnings is just Dozo outspeeding. To me, though, this game was a very different game from the previous one because they try to go with Trick Room, right? And essentially we were able to just knock out the Blood Moon with that double up. So huge that Sacred Fire was able to just get that knockout after the Sacred Sword chip damage onto the Blood Moon, because then they didn't have a Terra to play with at the end of this game. And I think like if they just get one single Hyper Voice off and Trick Room gets set up, it's a completely different game, because then it means you're probably going to get another Hyper Voice off, because I can't use any priority attacks thanks to Farigiraf. Ooh, we got a Registeel team here. Okay, that's cool. Flutter, Ogerpon, Rilla, Instinct, Cresselia, Registeel. So Registeel's generally going to want to Iron Defense and Body Press up. It's going to be pretty annoying to deal with, and we can consider using, for example, Chien-Pao to Sacred Sword it. I'm really curious what Terras people are running on Registeel. Could be Poison, could be Dragon, Grass, Fire. So many good defensive Terras. Entei is great, though, because it can burn Registeel, which decreases your damage of Body Press. What do I want to lead with? Maybe better ask, who do I not want to bring? I think Bolt is actually pretty interesting against Registeel if it ends up being Dragon Terra Regi. I don't love Dragonite here. I think Entei Flutter is pretty nice here. Chien-Pao. I'm going with Raging Bolt here because I want special damage into Registeel. We'll see if that ends up being the right call. Like, I think Ogerpon looks decent here. Mainly for super effective damage into Incineroar. Being able to nuke Flutter Mane. Being able to Horn Leech there, Ogerpon. Instant and Registeel. Okay. Yeah, I don't mind this at all. I think we're in a pretty good spot on turn 1 here, but the question is, for example, I think if you're my opponent, you can protect Registeel and just Parting Shot with Incineroar into something. So the standard moveset is just Iron Defense, Body Press, Heavy Slam, and Protect. Right, so this could Terra and then Heavy Slam Flutter as well. If I were my opponent, I would personally protect this and then Parting Shot into Entei. And then that would allow them to go into Ogerpon for free. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to play on the offensive here, like Stomping Tantrum. Terra, and just go all in on knocking out Incin. This is kind of risky in my opinion, but the reason why I'm willing to do this is because I think Registeel often lends to a little bit more passive play. And I think you also have to be worried about Sacred Fire just going off into the Registeel slot. But if it's a Fire Terra Registeel, I think you just Fire Terra here. But bingo. Nice. Now the question is whether or not I actually knock out the Incineroar. But either way, this is huge because it means I'm not getting KO'd by a Heavy Slam. It's close. I think with Citrus, you probably survive Stomping with like 5 to 10%, which is a shame. Yeah. Oh, it's just Blitz though. Okay. Nice. Flutterman has a good amount of defense here, so we survive. Not a bad trade. Means they don't get a Parting Shot off. It does kind of sting though to make the read and still not even get that knockout. Like, Incineroar is just so bulky. Given that, like, it would have been better just to have gone for, like, Protect and then Stomping Tantrum on turn 1. But that's fine. Ogre comes out now. Okay. Ogre obviously pressures this with water type damage. I think a Terra makes sense. I want to pivot Entei out in a Raging Bolt right now. Question is what I want to do with Flutter Mane. I think just Moonblasting here is fine. Yeah, it'd be a really different game if we didn't take any damage on turn 1, but even after making the read, it still didn't end up paying off that heavily. Really nice Flare Blitz, though, because I think, I thought Parting Shot would be their play there for sure. Flare Blitz makes sense. I wouldn't be well, I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if Vincent had more attack investment, but then they also took a special attack and a physical attack really well. Oh. The return of the king. Here's a Terra. Okay. This is interesting. Who do you Terra? Okay, it's going to be Registeel. This is why I wanted to bring Raging Bolt. You are now weak to Thunderbolt. That is really good. Good Spiky Shield. Good Spiky Shield. Ah, that would have been a good spot to protect. I'm going to guess they're just heavy slamming here. Yeah. Alright, that's fine. That is fine. You haven't had time to set up, right? Now that you're Water Terra, Bolt just pressures Registeel. So I'm going to just bring out Chien-Pao. With Chien-Pao, I think I honestly just want to double up onto the Ogerpon slot. They could double up on Chien-Pao, I guess, which is the scary thing, but, like, I'd like to Thunderbolt here and Ice Spinner, because I can see them going for Follow Me. I don't want to just Thunderclap into a Follow Me. Yeah, exactly. This is huge, because it means Chien-Pao's Focus Sash, like, Chien-Pao will survive the turn, right, because of Focus Sash. Oh, that's a really defensive Ogerpon, though. Spinner did way less than I expected. Oh, that's fine, though. Yeah, this is totally fine. Like, yeah, you get your Iron Defense up, but so what, right? I'm actually just going to Thunderbolt this and Sacred Sword this. Because I think they probably Spiky Shield with Ogerpon right now. And if you go for Follow Me, Sacred Sword just KOs you, and then I get Thunderbolt off into the Registeel slot. Their best play is protect Reggie and just sacrifice. Well, actually, if they protect Reggie and just attack here with Ogerpon, that would be a really good play. But I don't want to Sacred Sword into a Spiky Shield and then feint to a Body Press on the Chien-Pao. Which is why I want to double up onto Registeel here. Curious on the Ogerpon EV spread. Yeah, I took Spinner plus... beautiful. Okay, yeah, nice. I feel like the reads have been on point this game, which I'm happy about. Sacred Sword. Super effective Thunderbolt. Ooh, it does survive, but that's fine. We get a Paralysis. I mean, I'm assuming they're just body pressing here. Oh, they actually target Bolt. Oh. It's fine. Wow, I actually didn't... Even with the crit, like, I didn't think that would KO. Oh, wow, that is frustrating, though. Huh. Because you're only at +2 defense. Wow. I mean, Chien-Pao also drops our defense, but... That was a brutal time to reach a crit. I think I'm happy. It's fine to make the safe play of Extreme Speed Sacred Sword here, I think. I think Entei cleans up this game for us. But what a time to get crit. I want to do the damage calc on that after this game, because that's kind of shocking to me. Yeah, I'm worried that the Flutter switches in now. Okay, that's Rillaboom. That's fine. Is it fine? Like, does Registeel just beat me now because of that crit? Oh, I think, like... I'm just worried that, like that crit did so much. You know, the other problem is I can't burn this Registeel now because of the paralysis. If they got full para there, that would have been great. 2 times for it to get full para. Neither happened, and I got crit. I'm worried that this just heals all the way back up now. Protect on Chien-Pao here is super obvious, but I think I still go for it. I'm just going to Sacred Fire and Protect. But the problem is now Terrain is up. They switched out. Okay. Oh, that was really smart. That was really smart. The reason why that's really smart is because it allows you to pivot Rillaboom back in and now go for Fake Out plus Body Press onto Chien-Pao. They get parried though. Okay. For any time to pair, I really would prefer the previous 2 turns. But I think, like, my opponent actually probably wins this with Registeel if I don't get a double protect or they don't get paired. Because now you fake out body press into Chien-Pao, for sure. That was a really nice play by my opponent, though. I could have played around that by just Sacred Swording outright. I just can't believe that, even with the crit, that got the knockout. That's, like, genuinely shocking to me. So, yeah, I'm going to go for Sacred Fire and go for the double protect here. We don't get the double, so now it's a question of do they get parried with Registeel. Yeah, like the para I really wish didn't happen, honestly, earlier on in the battle, because then I could have fished for burns onto Registeel as well. And no para, so I think Reggie ends up winning this now. Wow. Man, what an unfortunate crit onto Bolt. I've made so many good predictions this game, but it didn't even matter. I gotta pull up the damage calc. I mean, Reggie could still get, like, infinitely paralyzed, but that was just a fantastic play, though, the Rilla play. Like, nicely done. What is even more damage? Single target Snarl or Stomping? I mean, Extreme Speed is the... This is, what, 150 with stab, 75? Yeah, I mean, I go for crit E-speeds right now. Alright, there's a para. So, it's still doable. Gosh, yeah, we need a crit. Man. This game stings, I'm not gonna lie. It really hurts. No crit. Yeah. Wow. Just impressed, like, it's a testament to how bulky Registeel is, right? It took a super effective Thunderbolt that turn and Sacred Sword. The fact my opponent found a way to come back in this battle was honestly so impressive, but it all starts with that crit. I think if the crit doesn't happen there, the game is just immediately over. Yeah, we just do no damage. Oh, man. What a disappointing outcome. Alright, I gotta do this damage calc. I just can't believe that. I really can't. Registeel, +2 defense, Sword of Ruin, Raging Bolt. So yeah, pulling up the damage calc, Body Press does 66 to 78% if it is max defense Registeel, and sometimes players will invest in special defense, so I'm just calculating for max. And so obviously without a critical hit, you definitely don't get that knockout, but when you factor a critical hit on the body press, then if it is max defense, then it's almost always a guaranteed one-hit knockout. This changes dramatically, obviously, if you have less defense investments. Let's say you have like 100 defense EVs, then the Raging Bolt can still survive as well, right? So my opponent would need to get the critical hit and get the right damage roll as well. But if they are maxed, then with the critical hit, it's almost a guaranteed KO. So yeah, I am honestly kind of shocked by that. Like, I really thought even with the critical hit, we'd be okay. And it is wild because that single crit completely reverse the outcome of the game, right? But I thought my opponent did a really good job figuring out how to find a path to victory in that one because things looked so dire for them. But that one crit basically opened up the game completely. And the reason for that is because I lost both of my special attackers, right? And so physical attackers into a Registeel, just not very valuable. And I think the play where they brought in Rillaboom, baited the Protect out, and then switched out immediately was really clever as well. So yeah, it's a game that definitely stings to lose, especially because I feel like generally made pretty good plays across the board. But I think I could have conserved Flutter Mane the turn that it went down to Heavy Slam, right? Because a single Shadow Ball or Moonblast from Flutter Mane also goes a really long way against the Registeel, and it's also a testament to Registeel's bulk that it was able to survive the Thunderbolt as well as the Sacred Sword, right? So if I got a little bit more chip damage from the Flutter Mane earlier on in the battle, wouldn't have even given Registeel the chance to potentially survive, right? And so, yeah, that was a really wild game, but I gotta really tip my hat off to my opponent for finding the way to win that game, because it felt like I was just in such a good spot, but that one crit immediately turned the tides substantially, and then figuring out how to pivot in Rillaboom, getting that Grassy Terrain plus leftovers recovery, and then, like I said, making that beautiful play of baiting Protect out and then switching out, sacrificing Groupon to get another fake out in was really, really clever. So job well done. Whoa. Cool team here. We've got Alolan Ninetales, Sandslash, Farigiraf, Rhyperior. I think Rhyperior is actually really good in this format. I want to try it out soon. Archaludon and Incineroar. As always, I'm worried about Trick Room here. We don't have Weather. Like, low-key, Ninetales and Sandslash might cause some trouble. That's actually a really scary combo. I think I want to lead Flutter because it pressures with Moonblast. Like, Flutter... Entei's good. Flutter Entei, Ogerpon. Don't think Bolt is good when they have Farigiraf. It's probably just Chien-Pao because I can Sacred Sword with it. Their team is just really cool, though. Yeah, like, I don't know which mode they're going to go with. I think if you go Ninetales Sandslash, the scary thing is if I Terra Entei, I suddenly become weak to ice. Oh my gosh, it's Ninetales Sandslash. That's so cool. That's so cool. I would almost expect Sandslash to Terra here. Into what though? Like water? It's a 50% chance to burn as well. I think I might just Sacred Fire here, turn 1 and Protect. Yeah, here's Terra. Terra, Water, Sandslash is my guess. Maybe Fire. Dragon. Also makes sense. Okay, they Iron Head into us, which is good. I'm glad I didn't commit a Terra there, because then they would have been able to hit us for super effective ice damage the next turn. This Sacred Fire is more... If we get the burn here, I think Flutter just wins the game, like, next turn. As long as we don't get flinched or crit. Nice. Entei with these burns. This Pokemon is so incredible when Sacred Fire burns. I mean, even without the burns, it's incredible, but when it burns, oh my gosh. It just feels so good. Okay, given that, I think Flutter Mane should definitely survive an Iron Head now. So I'm down to just Sacred Fire. I think I probably still want to Terra Ogerpon though, right? Terra Ogre is really good against the remaining ones. So I think it's fine to just Sacred Fire. And Moonblast. Okay, Sandslash switches out. Into Incineroar. That's fine. Part of the strength of this duo is that it's very anti-Incineroar. Still solid damage. Nice. They just freeze dry. Okay, that's fine. Like, if you don't freeze here... Yeah, that's great. And Sacred Fire still does so much. Excellent. Another burn. This one, I think, less meaningful just because we should get the knockout anyway with 2. I think if we Terra this, instant just faints, so... I'm down to just send the Terra now, knowing that Instin's in the back. Like, initially I was thinking I want to conserve my Terra if you have, like, Farigiraf plus Archaludon or Farigiraf plus Rhyperior, but given that Instinct switched in here, I think we can just Terra and try to get a double knockout right now. Yep, and they don't click Fake Out. Perfect. Knocks out Incineroar, even with the Aurora Veil up. The nice thing here was that Moonblast didn't activate Citrus Berry. It's actually a pretty big deal. Blizzard comes out, just doesn't do very much. And Sacred Fire comes out. Ninetales was, Sandslash was really cool and honestly put on a lot of pressure into Fluttermane, but unfortunately a burn just makes it so useless. So, Entei decided to want to be clutch and stop Sandslash from pulling off any shenanigans here, but it's cool to play against one. Sandslash comes out. And their last one is Rhyperior. Okay. How many turns of Snow are left? Still 2. One thing to note is we can just switch Fluttermane out and back in as Snow expires to close out this game. And then Ogerpon and Champao should be able to win this for us as well. I'm happy to just go for Sacred Fire because if we get a burn on Rhyperior, then it's just Omega hurt for my opponent. Yeah, I think I'm going to protect, go for the Sacred Fire, and then just switch Flutter out into Ogerpon, and then Ogerpon plus Flutter wins this game. I don't even think we really need Champao. The key thing here is to just not give Sandslash the opportunity to come back into this game. Right? Okay. Can we go 3 for 3 on Sacred Fire burns? Who needs Will-O-Wisp when you have Sacred Fire Entei? I almost feel bad because I feel like I'm wasting my Sacred Fire luck here where it's not really meaningful on Ninetales or the Rhyperior. It was very important on Sandslash though. Like, that just completely changed the outcome of the game immediately. But to get 3 in a row, very lucky. I mean, it's a 1 in 8 chance, not accounting for accuracy. But yeah, I'm just stomping and then switch out into Ogerpon. The reality is I think even without any of the burns, we're in decent shape in this game. But the first burn just completely won us the battle since their team relies, I think, pretty heavily on Sandslash. That actually did a lot to Ogerpon. Okay, that's because it's Life Orb. That makes sense. I was like, you did 25 damage for a Pokemon that resists that very nicely. I'll go for Rock Slide. Okay. No more Snow, though, so single Dazzling Gleam should just close out this game at this point. It would have been really interesting to try to play around Sandslash if the burn didn't happen, because I think what I would have ended up doing was switching Flutter out into Ogerpon. Like, I think my game plan in this battle, honestly, is to try to get a burn on this by going for multiple Sacred Fires, but if I, use it twice and still don't get a burn, then it feels pretty bad. We can just Horn Leech Stomping Rhyperior. Yeah. Cool team. Really, really cool team. I think Rhyperior is an underexplored Pokemon, has a lot of potential, and Sandslash is interesting. It just, like, suffers from the fact that there are so many good fire types right now, including Entei and Incineroar. And if your attack is dropped, it just does so much less, right? And so, obviously, lucky for us to get that initial Sacred Fire burn. But I think in this matchup, yeah, it's actually not a bad plan to try to fish for burns. And I think, like I said, it would have been interesting, though, because they had Freeze Dry. So if I switch into Ogerpon, like, I do eat up a Freeze Dry on turn 2, which can be scary, right? Which actually would have been really problematic. I think if I were to replay this game, I would actually lead Ogerpon Entei and just Water Terra Ogerpon and follow me immediately, and then go for Sacred Fire. Because Water Terra Ogerpon means that I get rid of the Grass typing, Freeze Dry doesn't do nearly as much damage, and then your Sandslash shouldn't be able to do too much damage into Ogerpon either. But yeah, we were lucky that the burn just came out immediately in this one. But it's always good to think about how you can still improve your play, as I always say, and I think Entei Ogerpon as an adjustment to try to beat Sandslash Ninetales is actually better. Alright, we've got another Entei team here. Entei, Flutter, Dragonite. Well, it's actually 5 to 6 same mons. Now that I look at it, it's just Zapdos on their end over Raging Bolt on our end. I'm always curious about how to play these. Like, I've had opponents who go Dragonite, Champao lead. We could play the Pao Knight Mirror. Like, against Dragonite Chien-Pao, I think it's interesting because we can go Ogerpon Flutter, but they could easily go Ogerpon Flutter as well. I also don't know how fast their Dragonite's going to be relative to us. But I generally like Ogerpon Flutter, Entei Chien-Pao as a combo. Because the Ogerpon is tanky, and so we can survive normal Terra E-Speed even with Sword of Ruin. It's like... Yeah, that's a question of, like, what would I do, though, right? Like, let's say they do lead Chien-Pao Dragonite. I don't want to Terra, because if I Terra with Flutter, then I'm exposed to Extreme Speed afterwards. I could, like, Spiky Shield Ogre Dazzling Gleam, which is interesting. Ogre Entei works, but then the problem is Entei doesn't put on any offensive pressure against Dragonite. You're basically hoping to get a burn. I think Ogre Chien-Pao is also okay. Could just go with, honestly, Dragonite as well. Like, Dragonite Entei is interesting because you pressure normal Terra E-Speed plus E-Speed onto Chien-Pao, but then Chien-Pao could Ghost Terra. However, in that case, they can only Terra one of Chien-Pao and Dragonite, so if you commit your Terra to Chien-Pao, it means no normal Terra on Dragonite on the opposing side. Chien-Pao Entei. Okay. I think our Ogerpon is very well positioned here. But turn 1 is interesting, because even though it looks really good for me, looks can be deceiving. And what my opponent can do is just pivot Entei out into their Ogerpon. Like, I think if I were my opponent, I would protect Chien-Pao and then switch Entei out into Ogerpon. So I'm really thinking about just clicking Hornleech here, or going for Terra Hornleech. The problem if I Terra is I become weak to their Ogerpon, which is really scary. I'm going to protect Hornleech here. Let's see if they switch. They don't switch, but they go for a Terra. Okay. Probably Terra Grass, though, on Entei, right? Terra Water would be hilarious. I was hoping to will it into existence. Yeah, that play makes a lot of sense. And this is not good for me. We'll see where their targeting goes, though. Like, do you respect Flutter Mane enough, or do you just knock out Ogerpon? Alright, good start. Curious if they Sacred Fire into Flutter as well here. We're faster than Entei, which is actually really important information to confirm here. See if they get a burn. Do eat up a burn, which isn't great. Okay. Oh, leftovers Entei. Interesting. So you're not Assault Vested either. That's also good information. Here's the problem. Sacred Fire is just going to KO my Flutter Mane. You committed your Terra, though, and now that you committed your Terra, my Entei should have a very optimal matchup. I could lose both Pokemon here, but that trade might be worth considering. I'm just going to go for Follow Me Gleam here. The idea is to lose both Pokemon, but Chien-Pao's at 1 HP, and then Entei's low as well. They did go for Ice Spinner, though, so another play I was thinking about was Terra Water Ogerpon defensively, just so that you don't KO with Ice Spinner. But if my opponent just Sacred Swords there, then that completely counters the game plan, right? Oh! Stomping Tantrum instead of Sacred Fire. Wow. Okay, I'm really surprised about that, but I think that opens up a huge window of opportunity for us. I was expecting to lose both Pokemon there, and I was okay with that outcome, but this works out even better for us. Sacred Fire should just get the knockout there. I'm guessing my opponent was reading that I was going to switch out into Entei, which I think is actually a really fair prediction to try to make. But now I can just Extreme Speed you. What can they switch into? Shadow Ball on that slot covers for anything. I'm okay clicking Shadow Ball. Extreme Speed Shadow Ball. Get the KO. They switch. Okay. Switch Protect here is a good play by them. Into Flutter. Yeah, nicely played. That's okay, though. I think my Entei is in such a good spot now that you committed your Terra like that. Are they E-speeding? Yeah. Makes sense. Good play. Still okay with me, though. Now my question is whose Flutter main is faster? The EV spread that is on this team is modest max speed. Dragonite comes out. I think what I want to do here... So we can still Terra with either Pokemon. Late game Terra Chien-Pao I think is good. I think I want to Sacred Fire their Flutter main here and Protect. But it also could be just worthwhile to attack here, right? And just Moonblast. I actually think that's fine. I expect to have the faster Flutter here, quite frankly. I could see them switching Flutter out into Chien-Pao and then Extreme Speeding. Oh my gosh, they actually have the faster Flutter, though. Uh-oh. They didn't Extreme Speed either, so what is Dragonite clicking here? Okay, so their Flutter has no bulk, I'm guessing, given that it didn't survive Sacred Fire. Is it Stomping Tantrum? Ooh. Is that KO? Oh boy. This is going to be an interesting endgame. Because their Chien-Pao is super low, but that should be... Choice Band Dragonite. And I still have Terra. Okay, we speed tie. If they Sacred Sword this turn and I Ghost Terra, I just win. I'm gonna Protect first to Scout. It's funny because I feel like when I use this team, I'm like, oh, I should be faster than Flutter mains, but I feel like so many Flutter mains I end up actually playing are faster than mine. I wonder, I don't know, I always wonder if it's a speed tie or what the deal is. Should be banded on Dragonite, so they just, yeah, I mean, like, Ice Spinner onto, I can just Terra Ice Spinner now. But the problem here is if they actually read this and go for Sucker Punch. But like, I wanted to scout out if they were going to try to Sucker Punch the previous turn, and they didn't. Plus, they don't actually know what Terra we have, right? So I figure it's in my advantage to just go for it. Yo! Okay, wait, but it's Throat Chop, not Sucker Punch. So I think we win because we have Sucker Punch and they don't. Yeah. They had the Dark-type move, though. They made the read. Well done. Well done. Oh, it could be Throat Punch. No, there's no way you have Sucker Punch, right? Because they revealed Sacred Sword just now. So we just click Sucker Punch onto them. Okay, nice. What a crazy game here, though. I felt like I was in such a good spot, but then their Flutter main being faster just, like, completely changed things, right? Fortunately, though, like, because they're faster, they didn't have bulk. Because if the Flutter survives the Sacred Fire there, I am so doomed. Like, I just lose the game immediately. So, I think I could have gone for Protect Sacred Fire there instead. That may have been the better call. But I figured a lot of the times our Flutter main is just going to be faster. If that's the case, we would just win off that. There is a Hisuian Typhlosion here. That's sick. Metagross, Tornadus, Incineroar, Raging Bolt, and Annihilate. Annihilate is interesting. Like, there's no beat up, so I feel like it's probably Scarf and Final Gambit. So, Entei is interesting. It's really good into something like Tornadus, Typhlosion. I think leading Entei is honestly probably okay here. Whoops, just dropped a charger. I want to lead as like much anti-Typhlosion as possible, so I think Entei Ogerpon, Entei Dragonite are our best bets. I think I don't mind Entei Ogerpon here. Chien-Pao with Sash and Sucker Punch is good against Tailwind stuff. I haven't really brought Raging Bolt out that much. I think it could be decent here, but I think Flutter is just consistent. The main question for me is whether or not they go with Tornadus, and if so, do they prioritize like Sunny Day for Typhlosion, which is probably Choice Scarf, or Tailwind? I think if it's Tornadus Typhlosion lead, I am just going to go for Water Terra Ogerpon turn 1. But it's Tornadus Metagross. Huh, this is actually pretty interesting, because if I Grass Terra, I'm suddenly weak to Bleak Wind Storm from Torn. I think Metagross going for Terra here, switching out makes sense too. Are they going to Bleak Wind Storm here, or just Tailwind? If I Grass Terra, I also suddenly become weak to Typhlosion, so I think I'm actually just going to Sacred Fire and Ivy Cudgel Torn turn 1. Expecting Metagross to Terra or Switch, or Protect. And it goes for Protect, okay. They did just go for Bleak Wind. Oh, wow. That does a lot of damage onto Ogerpon. Looks like it's a pretty offensive Tornadus, given how much it did. But in the end, this is not a bad trade, because they didn't get Tailwind up. I'm glad I didn't get baited into going for a Terra with Entei. The main reason to Terra Entei, by the way, is just fear of like an Earthquake from Metagross. Tailwind Earthquake, for example. Incineroar comes out, though, so Entei is looking very good right now. I think they probably should Terra Metagross here now, or switch it out. Given that I expected to Terra, I'm actually intrigued by going for like Stomping Tantrum onto Incineroar. And Spiky Shielding with Ogerpon. I think it's probably fine to just Sacred Fire Metagross here, because it's like even if it Terras, we can get a burn potentially, but if it's Fire Terra, for example, then we can't. But then if you're Fire Terra, you're just weak to Ogerpon now. Ground Terra. Ooh, okay. Well, that's weak to Chien-Pao and Ogerpon, so I'm happy with that. I think the problem is my opponent didn't set up Tailwind, so the lack of Tailwind should really punish them now. Alright, we get Stomping Off into Incineroar. Does just under 50, which is fine. They go for Knockoff onto Entei. Okay. And Darkest Lariat. Good play. We get a crit there. I think without the crit, maybe we survive that, but nicely done to read into that. That being said, I have such a big lead that I don't think it actually matters, because I just bring out Chien-Pao now. What could they switch into right now? There's no switching into Ivy Cudgel, so it's fine to just Ice Spin or Metagross here. Ivy Cudgel into Incin. They just go for Bullet Punch, which is fine. I can just Sucker Punch you if I don't KO you with Spinner here. Next turn. Okay, it does survive. So Bullet Punch, Protect. Which obviously makes sense. Knock Off. Presumably a ground type attack, right? But they still haven't gone for one. Or it could be double steel type attack. Annihilate is the last one. I'm really curious about the items on Annihilate here. But with Flutter as the last one, should be pretty well positioned. I guess Scarf Annihilate with Rage Fist would be kind of scary here. I'm going to just protect Spiky Shield here to scout out for what they want to do. Ideally, we bait out a Protect from one of these Pokemon, and then I just go Follow Me, Sucker Punch. KO Metagross. Okay, Annihilate protects. Does that mean Metagross is protecting as well, though? No, they went for Bullet Punch. Knowing that you're not Scarf Ape, though, is already good information, so I'm happy to just Sucker Punch here. Follow Me. Sucker, follow me, bring out Flutter, and then just Shadow Ball. Cool. Nice. Great. Yeah, I think in this game, even though my opponent made the nice read when Entei was out on the field and got the knockout with the double up, we were just so far ahead, honestly, after turn 1, I feel like. And forcing Metagross to Terra with Entei is really nice because, like I kind of talked about earlier, one of the nice things about this team is you force defensive Terras out when people don't want to fight against Entei, and then the rest of the team can really take advantage of that. So the main thing I wanted to be careful about here was playing around Scarf Annihilate with Rage Fist in the end game. But now we should just be able to click Ice Spinner and Moonblast. Might as well Terra just to secure it. No reason not to, really. And we know that they already committed their Terra on Metagross, so Moonblast itself should just get the knockout, but yeah. I always just like really like leading Entei with this team into teams with Incineroar because Incin is just so ineffective against Entei as a lead. This Moonblast is definitely overkill. Spinner itself almost just did 50%, but no reason to not Terra. In case they have some really random item, for example, that helps them survive. But yeah, I think ultimately in this game, turn 1 was already a big deal. Like predicting that Metagross would protect or switch out. We called that correctly. Got rid of Tornadus immediately. And then with that, it just meant they didn't have that much speed control. So like Incin, Metagross and Annihilate, like they're all kind of in like the middle tier speed. Annihilate's a little bit faster, but ultimately like those Pokemon are just pretty slow, right? So without speed control, it means that I can just take over the game with Chien-Pao and Flutter. Whereas if they had clicked Tailwind on turn 1 and Metagross had gone for an attack, I think even though you don't get that initial Bleak Wind damage off, you at least set yourself up for the next couple of turns. So yeah, it's a question of whether or not that Bleak Wind's worth it. But I can see what my opponent was going for because I think they were probably expecting me to just Sacred Fire Metagross, which is a really logical expectation. So if I just Sacred Fire Metagross, they're probably thinking, hey, I can get away with one Bleak Wind immediately, stagger my Tailwind, and then get Tailwind off the second turn. But in the end, I punished that pretty heavily by doubling up onto Tornadus. So I think denying them Tailwind in this game was huge. If Tailwind goes up, this game probably looks pretty differently. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much, as always, for joining me. And once again, a huge congratulations to Alex Underhill for becoming the brand new Portland Regional Champion. Really fun to feature a championship winning team with Entei, and I'm eager to see how the format continues to develop and how Entei fits into all of it. So yeah, once again, go check out Alex's big win on YouTube and check out the report for this team down in the description below. Thanks as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.